heart of London. The grand Big Ben towered above the city, its golden clock face gleaming in the light of the winter evening. Every year, as the clock struck midnight on New Year's Eve, the chimes echoed through the streets, ringing in the beginning of a new year. For many, Big Ben wasn't just a clock. It was a symbol of new beginnings. And it was said that if you made a wish as the clock struck midnight, it could come true, provided you worked hard for it. 10-year-old Ollie stood at the kitchen table in his cozy London flat, staring at his long list of resolutions. He tapped his pencil against the paper and sighed. This year, he wanted to learn to play the drums, learn to draw animation, run a marathon for his age group, be more confident and speak up more. He dreamed big. But when he looked at the list, he felt really overwhelmed. How could he possibly do all of these things at once? His mother, who was busy preparing their New Year's Eve dinner, noticed his furrowed brow. "What's the matter, Ollie?" she asked, wiping flour from her hands. "I made a list of all the things I want to do next year," Ollie said, holding up the paper. "But it's too long, and I don't know where to start." His mother smiled gently and took the list. Well, that's quite an ambitious list," she said. "But you know, resolutions are like baking bread." Ollie raised an eyebrow. "Baking bread?" "Yes," his mother said, with a twinkle in her eye. "When you bake bread, you have to take your time. You let the dough rise, you knead it gently, and you don't rush. If you try to bake too many loaves at once, none of them turn out right. You need to focus on one thing at a time and give it your best." Ollie thought about that. "Well, I guess that makes sense," he said, feeling a little lighter. Okay, I'll focus on these things. Learn to play the drums, run a marathon, be more confident, draw animation." His mother smiled warmly. "That sounds like a great plan. You've got this, Ollie." That evening, the streets of London were buzzing with excitement. The entire city seemed to sparkle with lights, and the sound of music echoed through the air. Ollie stood with his best friend Emily by London Bridge, eagerly waiting the arrival of midnight. The towering Big Ben stood proudly in the distance, its golden hands ticking closer to the hour. "Are you ready for magic, Ollie?" Emily asked, her breath misting in the cold air. Ollie grinned. "I think so. I'm going to wish for the courage to stick to my resolutions." Emily giggled. "Me too. Let's see if Big Ben can make our wishes come true." As the crowd gathered, excitement filled the air. The clock's hands slowly moved closer to midnight, and the stars in the sky seemed to twinkle just a little brighter. 10, 9, 8. Ollie closed his eyes, took a deep breath and whispered, "I wish to learn to play the drums, run a marathon for my age group, and be confident and speak up more. 3, 2, 1. Happy New Year!" The crowd erupted into cheers, and fireworks exploded in the sky, lighting up the London skyline. Ollie opened his eyes, half expecting to feel something magical. But Big Ben still looked the same. The world felt the same, and everything seemed as it was before. Emily nudged him. "Maybe the magic takes a little while to work." Ollie nodded, though he wasn't entirely sure. "Maybe," he said, "but I'm ready to give it my best try." The next morning, After a hearty breakfast, Ollie put on his running shoes and stepped outside into the crisp winter air. The streets of London were quiet, and the snow crunched beneath his feet as he began to run fast. At first, he could only manage a short jog. His legs burned after just a few minutes, and his lungs felt tight. "Oh, this is harder than I thought," he mumbled to himself. But then he remembered his mother's words. Take it one step at a time and just do it. Ollie slowed his pace and breathed deeply, focused on keeping steady. He ran a little further each day, building up his strength. By the end of January, he was running around the block without stopping. Emily even joined him on some days, and they cheered each other on as they improved together. Meanwhile, Ollie practices drumming every afternoon. At first, his beats were a mess, sticks clattering everywhere and rhythms completely out of sync. But he didn't give up. He watched drumming videos online, listened to his favorite songs, and practiced with his uncle. Slowly, his rhythm became steadier, and he even started playing simple songs. For his final resolution, Ollie worked hard to be more confident. At first, his heart raced every time he raised his hand in class, but he kept trying. He answered questions, even when he was unsure, and spoke up during group activities. Little by little, he felt braver. One day, his teacher asked him to give a short presentation to the class. And although his knees shook, Ollie spoke clearly and with pride. When he finished, his classmates clapped, and Ollie's heart soared. "You did a great job, Ollie," his teacher said with a smile. Ollie smiled back, feeling proud of his progress. He had worked hard, and it had paid off. As the next New Year's Eve approached, Ollie couldn't help but think about how far he had come in the last year. He had learned to play several songs on the drums, his confidence had grown, and he'd even run in his first kids' marathon. He couldn't wait to see how much more he could accomplish in the new year. As he stood beneath the glowing face of Big Ben with Emily that evening, Ollie thought about the wish he would make. "What are you wishing for, Ollie?" Emily asked, looking up at the clock. Ollie smiled and said, "This year I'm not wishing for myself, I'm wishing for my mum." Emily blinked in surprise. "For your mum? What are you wishing for her?" Ollie's face lit up. "I'm wishing that my mum will always be happy. She works so hard, and I want her to feel just as special as she makes me feel." Emily grinned. "That's the best wish ever." As Big Ben's golden hand struck midnight, the crowd cheered and fireworks filled the sky above London. Ollie felt a warm glow inside his chest. He wasn't sure if the magic of the clock had worked exactly the way he had imagined. But one thing was clear. When you worked hard, whether for yourself or for someone else's happiness, that was the true magic. Bye for now, little ones. Until next time.